Hey everyone, just want to make a video real quick, and I don't make a lot of videos, but I spent the last 2 days just kind of on and off figuring out how to set up HDSDR to work as a Panadapter for my FTDX-3000 using a combination of the NooElec Ham It Up Upconverter that I have hooked into the IF output here on the FTDX-3000. And after it goes through this Upconverter, it goes into the RTL-SDR SDR dongle using the Realtek chipset, the RTL-2832U, it looks like there. So this was not the easiest thing in the world to find information on how to do correctly. There's a lot of walkthroughs out there. A lot of them do a really good job, but maybe it didn't work exactly for my hardware setup. We're on Windows 10 as well, so that might have played into it. Some of the videos didn't show exactly what I wanted to show, so I kind of had to guess around a little bit, but I finally got it working, and I kind of wanted to walk through it so that anybody else trying to do what I did doesn't have to spend on and off 2 days doing it before you can get it right, and it's really cool when it works right. So anyway, like I said, we've got the RTL-SDR version 3 SDR dongle. That Ham It Up Upconverter is a version, I believe, 1.3 there. So we have the FTDX-3000, and as far as HDSDR itself, the software goes, we're at version 2.75 here. Now this one, 2.75 had been in beta. It wasn't the stable version for a while, but I think as of January 1st, 2017, this is now the recommended download, the stable version. So 2.75, and some things have changed menu-wise since the previous version. So I kind of want to show you that too, because that threw me off. So there's some pre-work, right? You gotta do before you can actually get HDSDR running. Nothing too complicated. This usually isn't the complicated part. There's a few little kind of software packages you gotta get at here, and I'm doing this with I've only got two hands, so we'll see if I can click and show you this at the same time. So there's a Zadig. That was the first thing I needed to install. Now this kind of freaked me out because it involved messing with device drivers. But it's really no giant deal. What I had to do with it was download it and use it so that the RTL-SDR dongle uses the standard driver that HDSDR is expecting to see. So I'll try to put links to these sites, like the one to this Zadig here and some of the others I had to do in the description here. But when you fire it up, and we'll just pretend like I'm doing it for the first time here, just so you see what I'm doing. This is what, and we'll shrink this guy down so it doesn't get in our way. So the whole idea with this guy is you're going to, from this drop-down menu, pick your RTL-SDR dongle, and then you're able to use these buttons and these labels here below it to install the WinUSB driver so that Windows will use that driver for the dongle. The only problem is, and this might be a Windows 10 thing, there is nothing in this drop-down when you first bring it up. So what I had to do is, under options, go to list all devices, and once you do that, you should be able to see this guy right here, and that is the one you want to go for. So you would click on that, and then it'll say it says reinstall driver here. For me, it should just say install driver or something along those lines for you when you do it for the first time. So that is Zadig. So the other piece here is, and this one is really super simple, it's OmniRig. So it's just kind of this little framework to make the actual rig control work from HDSDR down to your actual rig. So when you click on something, the VFO actually goes to where you want it to go. So OmniRig, it's a really super simple download and install. I will not get bogged down in it. But there is one more piece, and this was kind of weird. So there's this EXTIO, what they call DLL file, that HDSDR is going to expect to have in its program directory in order to communicate with your SDR dongle. So there is a link to download this on HDSDR's site. That link with the DLL that it links to did not totally do it for me. When I finally got everything working, I had used the version of the DLL that I got from this person's GitHub site, where they actually developed it. So you're going to go here, and I'll try to get this link in the description as well. Where it should start you is actually this page that looks like this. If you've never been on GitHub before, it can be a little weird to navigate, but you're going to go to the release folder here. And there's extio RTL.dll. So you'll be able to click on that and download it from there. Here's the other thing. So they have a 64-bit version, I assume what this is, of this DLL. That totally did not work for me, and I thought that it was going to work because I'm running a 64-bit version of Windows 10. I assume why that didn't work is that HDSDR itself doesn't include full support for 64-bit operating systems. I'm assuming that's why that is. I'm sure someone will correct me if that's not the case. But anyway, downloading this DLL from the actual GitHub site worked for me. So anyways, that's the pre-work. And once you download that DLL, like I say, it is going to go into the directory that HDSDR installs into. And I was going to try to show you where that is. If I open file location on this, yeah, this is the default directory HDSDR installs into. It's on the C drive in the program files x86 directory, and then in HDSDR. And there is that DLL that I just downloaded from that GitHub page. Now make sure to move that file into this directory before you start up HDSDR for the first time, otherwise it will not know where it is. So yeah, there's that. Alright, so that's the pre-work, right? We got OmniRig done, we got that DLL put in, we've got Zadig that we use to install the correct driver for the SDR dongle. So, now the actual software, right? Okay, so I'll just go through the menus that I had to go into. I will try not to do anything more complicated than I have to, because it can be sort of complicated, but down here, if I click on sound card, alright, so a new fun thing in 2.75, HDSDR 2.75, is there is an explicit option for using HDSDR without audio output. This is kind of what we want, because we're not really into the idea of using this as a second receiver, although technically we could. We just kind of want to use it as a Panadapter for this FTDX-3000. We're still receiving all of our audio through there and playing around there. So it's nice we can actually click on this now in 2.75. Bandwidth, you know, I kept... These are the default values. I kept them like this. These were the same values that other walkthroughs online tended to suggest, so I just didn't touch it. This works for me. Alright, so options, right? Okay, start at the top and work down. Okay, so select input. It should say Realtek. That is your SDR dongle, even though Realtek doesn't sound like an SDR dongle, but that is the chipset that's inside, so that is what we want. Let's see, look at my notes here. Okay. Alright, RF front-end configuration. So check this out. If you do not listen to anything else in this video, this is the one that you want to listen to. So, you can see, now this is confusing, right? Because there's about 4 options you can pick from here, 4 overall options here. The one that you would think that you would pick is this one down here that says SDR hardware on down/Upconverter, because that's what we have, right? We're like running this RTL-SDR dongle through that Ham It Up Upconverter. That is actually not the correct choice in this situation, or at least it wasn't for me. I am sure someone has got it working that way, but I was unable to get everything totally working until I selected SDR on IF output, controlled by OmniRig. So, full sync in both directions, I believe that's the default option, but the magic number is this IF frequency of 134 million hertz, right? So the way that we arrive at that number, the FTDX-3000, I believe the 5000 as well, on the IF out, it uses a frequency of 9 megahertz. So 9 megahertz plus the 125 megahertz that our upconverts, we arrive at this 134 number here. So 134 with 6 zeros after it, and that's where you want to be. Global offset I have set to 11160. That is a magical number that I do not entirely know the significance of how we arrived at that. I stole that from somebody else's configuration video, and it works for me. So by all means, try that yourself. Additional offset per mode. The only ones that I messed with were lower sideband and upper sideband there. You see the 1175 and the negative 1175 figure on that, and that sort of makes sense if you think about the bandwidth of a single sideband. So, and then mirror RF spectrum in general, I have that checked. So yeah, this magical menu, you're gonna want to make sure that one's right, or you probably will have a bad time, I'm thinking. So let's get back into the options menu here. All right, we did RF front end configuration. Let's see, calibration settings. Okay, so this is something that changed around a little bit in HDR 2.75. So there used to be, and I will go over here on this far right tab, find my mouse pointer, here we go. So this is an old menu that was in the previous version, but there used to be a little selector up here where you could select auto on here. Obviously, that is not here anymore. They have moved it to the next tab over, DC removal calibration for receive. So this defaults to, let me see, I think it defaults to off. I changed it to that second option, that IIR high pass, and there's that auto now. So that used to live over on the other tab. It lives here now. Kept the default bandwidth of 25 hertz, and that is what's going to eliminate one of those little kind of ghost signals here that we see up here on the waterfall display that's really super annoying and we don't want to see. So that's that calibration menu. Back down. Let's see, we did calibration. Recording settings and scheduler, miscellaneous options. We should be mostly good until we get to cat to radio, OmniRig, right? So we set up that, well, we installed that OmniRig software so that we could actually click on something on the waterfall and the VFO would move on our FTDX-3000, so we could actually listen to what we just saw. So what you want to do is, and of course I already did this, but you can see what I did under OmniRig setup. It's a pretty straightforward cat control kind of configuration menu that you might have seen in other software, but I selected the FTDX-3000 under rig type. If you do not see your rig on there, there are separate INI files that you can download on OmniRig's site. That may include your rig if you don't see it in that drop down. But the rest of the settings here are pretty standard if you've ever configured cat control for a radio before. Let's see, the only thing that I really had to, that made me scratch my head, this pull interval in milliseconds and timeout in milliseconds here, these bottom two options, they were not set to 100 apiece. I saw where a lot of people had set it to 100 apiece and had good luck, and that sounded like a good number to me. Like I had seen that in previous cat control setup for this rig, so I set it to 100, and I've not had any problems. The one time that I did have a problem, and this is a good tip, so sometimes if you're clicking on stuff and it's just not behaving the way that you think that it should be, in particular if your radio is not tuning to where you want it to tune, go to this menu that we were just at here, options, cat to radio, OmniRig, and make sure on sync rig 1 it actually doesn't say none, and it says the name of your rig there, and if it doesn't, go ahead and click on it so it tries to establish a connection. It fell off for me one time, and the connection dropped, and I didn't know what was going on. I went back into a million different menus and flipped a million different things around different ways and totally got sidetracked, and it was just because OmniRig had lost contact for whatever reason. So if it does happen, make sure to check that menu, make sure it's all synced up. So, what else should I be showing you? Okay, the other magical menu, right? So, EXTIO, so right, that same name as that DLL that we installed before. Most of the settings here I left as default, but the one you're probably going to want to mess with is tuner gain. Let me find my mouse pointer. Okay, so just to show you, mine is set to 14.4 decibels, but if I slide it up and down, you can kind of see how things increase there in that little graphical display behind it. And then if I did it all the way down, I don't have as many little peaks of signals before. This is just going to be a kind of a your mileage may vary thing about what makes the waterfall and the rest of the graphical display make the most sense for how you want to use it. My magical number is 14.4 there. Buffer size I set to 256 kilobytes because I saw somebody do it. It sounded fair. That might be a your mileage may vary thing. Your hardware, computer-wise, might behave differently with different buffer sizes, but 256 was my magic number. The other thing, okay, so frequency correction, right? This guy down here is measured in ppm. So it says -78 here. Now this defaults to 0, but what does this do when we mess with it? So what you're going to find is, or well, what you may find, what you may not find. Let me turn this up so you can actually hear something. And I will click on a signal so we can hear. Alright. So I'm going to... Okay. So I tuned my radio so that I can actually hear that signal not distorted, and I'm on frequency and all that. So what you may see here is you see how the little kind of blue area right here that denotes where we're tuned to doesn't, well, man, if you start talking again, that would be really great. But sometimes it's just a little bit off from the actual graphic display here in the waterfall. Like it might be a little to the left or a little to the right of that particular display. There you can see it here. It looks like the waterfall itself, the signal as it appears in the waterfall, is just a little bit off and to the left of where I have selected down here. That is where this frequency correction comes into play. I have it set to -78. If I bumped it up to maybe -80 or something like that, it might make those two things line up a little bit more. But play around with it. Get it set up right so that you can use this and you can click on things and everything's all centered up in the way that you want it. Man, so we're almost done, right? That's pretty much it for the menus that you're going to want to configure here just to get yourself up and running. But just a few things that I want to think to mention that I had to click around and I was dumb and I didn't realize the first time. So I was super dumb and I did not realize that this zoom slider was here. And I'm like, man, why does this not look like anything that I see in other people's screenshots and YouTube videos and all that? But the zoom slider, there we go, we're expanding it right now. See how the signals got kind of wider on the display, and if I go back the other way, they're a little skinnier and I can see some more of the spectrum. Yeah, that zoom slider was like all the way down, and I was like, why is nothing looking like I'm expecting it to look like here? But yeah, it was totally just the zoom slider. I'm dumb. You probably saw that like first time you opened the software, but I did not, so I thought I'd mention something. We talked about OmniRig kind of falling out of sync with the rig itself, and I thought something horrible had happened. It just turned out it needed to be reinitialized, so no big deal there. Okay, so once you get all of this set up exactly how you want it, and it's actually working, and you're like, oh my god, I can't believe I got this right, check this out. So down under options, find my mouse pointer again. Alright, so options, and I believe it's under miscellaneous options. Export HDSDR settings. You can actually export all of these settings off to a file that you can then keep someplace safe. So if God forbid you ever have to set all this up again, you can hopefully just in some way import that exported settings file, or at least look at it and remember what the heck it is you did. So anyway, this now officially works. I'm having a great time with it. Using that RTL-SDR dongle plus the Upconverter. Um, it might have been like a $60-70 investment, but for that, it really changes the way that you can approach receiving on your rig. So I hope you'll give it a shot. Any questions, please leave me a comment. Anything I missed, anything I said that's just straight up wrong or inaccurate, I will try to put links to the sites in the description on this so that you can click around and get the little pieces of software you need to actually make all of this come together and work in the end. But I hope this has been helpful. Have a great one.